Welcome, True Detective fans. We are back to cover part 5 of Night Country. There's one episode left after this, so there's a lot to get into, including the shocking ending. Before I begin, just make sure you like and subscribe and turn on your notifications. I've been covering every single episode of True Detective this season, so can't wait to cover the finale. But let's get started with part 5. Shocking ending where Pete, noble Pete, trusting Pete, was forced to put down his own father, Hank. We knew Hank was involved some type of way from episode 1 with him hiding Annie K's file. We knew something was up with him. We just didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went. We found out this episode, and we found out that the only way to stop him would be to put him down like his son had to do, unfortunately. But I'm not going to start there. I want to start with what I believe was the biggest revelation this episode, and that was exposing the supreme evil that's been permeating the entire Night Country series. And who is that evil? It's not supernatural. It's not a ghost or spirit from the lake or anything from underground. No, the supreme evil that's been just having its tentacles in every single facet of Ennis is none other than Kate from the mining company. Yes, Kate is the supreme evil. She's the one that put everything in place. She's the one that put the cover up in place with Annie K. She is the supreme evil. And I don't think she's been in every episode. She's been in the majority of them, but she's been a background character. And I feel like that was deliberately done to kind of show us how evil works. Doesn't have to be something big and monstrous, doesn't have to be supernatural. Normally, that evil is very everyday. It's subtle, it's behind the scenes, it's very shadowy. It's something that hints at the evil that's around us, but we may not notice if we're not paying attention. Kate is the source of it all. And one of the best scenes we had this episode is how she was talking to Hank. I think that conversation kind of symbolizes how we view Satan. You know, Satan doesn't tell you what to do. Satan just hints at what you should do and why it would benefit you. But the final decision rests with you. But there's always that temptation of you'll get these riches, Adam and Eve, you eat the apple, you'll know what God knows. In this case, the apple for Hank is chief of police. She already failed once in getting them that. He told her that. And she admitted to it, but she said, I didn't have the power I had back then. It was out of my control. I didn't know that Liz would get sent to this region, but I can make it happen now. You just have to do this one thing. But showing you how evil she is, and how smart she is, she made Hank have to say, I did not tell you to kill anyone when she hints at what she wants done with Otis Heist. But she says, I did not tell you to kill anyone. I need to hear you say that before you do anything to make sure that she's completely insulated. And that's what she's been since the beginning. Since Annie K was found dead, Kate has made sure that she has herself and the company completely insulated. She has cameras on that particular mining region or cave where Annie K was likely killed. She has all the bases covered where she doesn't have to get her hands dirty. She has Ted, who's trying to be mayor, in her back pocket, so she doesn't have to do anything directly. And that is why she is so dangerous. And she's very unassuming, right? Anytime she's come around, the only person she has beef with is Liz for sleeping with her husband. But otherwise, Kate is very unassuming. Everybody that she meets when she sees Hank before this, she was like, "Oh, how's Pete doing?" Blah blah blah. Make small talk. You would never think that this particular woman is responsible for everything that we've had going on this entire season. So yes, Kate is a supreme evil. It's not Cthulhu or anyone else, that we've been, guessing might be the supernatural element. The supreme evil is actually Kate, and we will be seeing how deep that goes, hopefully in the next episode. But there's one prediction I will say, and I don't even think this is a spoiler. In real life, we know people like this, like Kate, rarely get punished, as they should. So I don't expect her to be let out in handcuffs or anything like that. I do think the conspiracy will be exposed, but she's not going to be the fall person. People like that seem to always get away. Those people at the top, um, with those type of resources, they are too well insulated to end up behind bars, which is really sad, right? Someone like that should be put under the jail. but it never happens. We saw that with the financial crisis back in 2008. All those banking presidents and all that, none of them went to jail. But let you or me go outside and steal somebody's purse, we're going down for 10, 15 years. So it just shows you how it works. So I just want to let everybody know, do not expect Kate to go to jail. I think she's going to get away. The best we can expect is the mining company to be shut down, which I do hope will happen. But yes, Kate is the supreme evil of this entire show. And finally, her mask was taken off with this episode. Now let's go into Hank, the one that she's trying to send on this mission to kill Otis Heist, who knows where the underground caves are, can direct Liz and Evangeline there. So he needs to go. But she couldn't have picked a worse person. Hank did tell us he's not a killer, and he was not exaggerating. He is a terrible goon. Terrible. Uh, he's stalking Liz, like literally like up on her heels in the office. She makes him immediately that he's snooping around too much. He has a terrible poker face because she asks him point blank, "Did you tell Ted about the Wheeler case?" He can't even lie on his face, so she already knows what he's up to. And she's able to put two and two together really quickly after talking with Pete that Hank was the one that hacked into Pete's laptop and was able to get that information about the Wheeler case. So Hank was not the one for the job. He's just too obvious with everything that he's doing, too impulsive, and that's what leads to him getting killed when he strong arms into Liz's house to try and get Otis Heist. And when he gets killed, it really dawned on me that, Pete has been kind of our moral compass for this entire series. He's kind of the only one that hasn't been compromised as far as his morals go. And unfortunately for that, there is a price. The price is when you have a pure soul like that is going to get exploited, and you're going to have to do things that kind of kills your innocence, which in this case was killing his father. And also, by depending so much on Liz, it strained his home life with Layla and his son. So those were kind of the big sacrifices that he's made that is going to completely like change his mindset going forward. But one thing I really liked about that scene, it allowed us to see the only time so far that I believe Liz has shown true affection, like motherly affection to someone. Because as soon as Pete killed his father and he breaks down on the floor, uh, Liz runs to him and actually holds him and embraces him. We haven't even seen her do that with Leia throughout the whole show. Probably the last time she's embraced somebody like that would probably have been Holden, when he was young. And also on top of that, now she wants to completely protect him. She doesn't want to leave him alone to clean up the body and everything. You see the tears in her eyes. She doesn't want him to have to do that. Her pure love is kind of shining through, and it was good to finally see that for someone that has been so hurtful to the people that she loves. Like Leia told Pete earlier, you have to be careful with Liz. She's not good with people that she loves. But in that moment, that was one of Liz's most purest moments that we've seen in the entire series. And it was kind of leading up to that because even beforehand, she told Pete that, you can't stay at Hank's anymore. I know you can't be seen at my house because Layla would throw a fit, but here, stay in the shed. We don't have to see each other. We started seeing her be more motherly, and that kind of culminated with her embracing him and the tears in her eyes after she's seen him do something so selfless. Do you know how much Pete has to love this woman to kill his own father for her? I think that dawned on her that this boy really loves me like a mother. And it's about time that I start returning that type of love. Because remember earlier in the episode when he told her that he had got kicked out the house, she was like, "Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, but sorry about your divorce. Where's the evidence?" So I think Liz has finally turned the page before the finale that, she's embracing those feelings that she's had walled off for so long. So it's really nice to see that between them. Um, the other thing with Pete and Hank's relationship, I think it also ties back a little bit to the whole spiral concept of time is a flat circle. Because remember, Hank had to break through the ice and everything to save Pete as a child. And he basically saved him to lead up to this moment unwittingly to take him out to save the case and to at least have a little redemption left with Hank, because he was about to kill Liz. He already killed Heist, so he might be irredeemable, spirit wise at this point, having moved Annie K's body and everything, but he prevented him from just totally unraveling everything that they were working towards, which is solving this case and bringing Annie K's murderers hopefully to justice. And I also like that we saw when Hank was playing the guitar and we saw Pete go past his room. I think it dawned on Pete that this is where I'm headed, because you remember he said before he's seen the guitar in the house, but he's never seen his dad actually play it. So Hank kind of represents somebody that put his talents, put his true calling to the wayside for whatever reason, and has left him a old broken man who was alone. And Pete, as much as he was trying to run away from that, was headed down the same path of neglecting his family and everything. That was been his truest achievement, his family life, in order to appease Liz. And I think at that moment he made a turn that, I'm not going to be like my father. And that was culminated with him being forced to kill Hank. So I think Liz and Pete, this was their big moments as far as being true detectives. They shared a lot of intimate moments in this episode. And one of the other scenes, probably the best scene, was Liz admitting to Pete that, me and Evangeline, we killed Wheeler in cold blood, even though he deserved it. We went against the oath of our badge and being, judge, jury, and executioner, and not allowing him to be brought to justice and taking justice in our own hands. At that moment, Pete could have decided this woman is terrible. I'm not backing her anymore. But that is where true love comes in. True love to me is when you see somebody completely, their warts and all, and still decide, I'm going to be there for this person. I still love this person no matter what. He's looking Liz in her eyes as she confesses the truth about the Wheeler situation, the truth he already knew, but she's willing to admit that to him, and in that moment, that's when they both became, like really true detectives. Him being a true detective, being able to crack that situation that they had hidden in the Wheeler case. And then they're both being able to admit it because you know what? Now we know there's no secrets between us. Now we can move forward with solving this case and finally bringing Annie K's killers in, hopefully. So I really think the biggest progression in this episode, besides revealing Kate as the supreme evil, was the relationship between Pete and Liz reaching another deeper level. Is going to be a lifelong, complete bond now. But now it's going to be a healthy bond. It's not going to be the one-sided power dynamic, which was before Liz just ordering him around, not taking his feelings into consideration, not having any boundaries. I think all that's dead now. Now they're going to have a healthy relationship, at least for the final episode that we have. So that's what I have to say about Liz, Hank, and Pete. As far as other moments that really stood out to me, I think that talk that they had, speaking about Liz, Pete, and also Ted, when Ted actually revealed to Liz about knowing her secret in the Wheeler case. Another thing that True Detective does well is showing us that there's no clean heroes, no comic book heroes with no flaws or anything. All the heroes have warts, they have shortcomings. But the true heroic people that we know are able to overcome those shortcomings and do what they need to do. It would have been very easy, as Liz was trying to do, is pack it in, knowing that she could possibly be exposed and lose her job, or possibly end up in prison behind what happened with Wheeler. She was not willing to go there. She was letting the fear encompass her, telling Evangeline that the case is over. But her turning point is when Evangeline said, okay, we're not moving forward with this case. The spirit of Annie K that I've been holding on to, that I've been cursed by to a degree, that I've had to carry, you're going to have to carry that now. Because at this point, if you're going to give up and turn your back on everything that we've worked towards, you're going to have to carry that pain going forward. And to Liz's credit, she went to, after talking with Leia about all the stillbirths that have happened recently, 9 in total, she went to the tomb where the bodies are being held because they can't get buried yet because it's too cold. So you have these forgotten native children that are dead behind what the mining company is doing, just laying there, lies crushed. We don't know what these children could have been in life. They never even had a chance, all because of the greed of the mining company. and the scientists working on behalf of the mining company cooking the numbers. I think at that moment she realized that this could easily be Leia. You know, as much as I've been trying to protect her, keeping her away from the protests and all that, thinking I'm doing the right thing is destroying the evil that makes life difficult for Native women like Leia. And the only way to do that is to face it head on. You know, not trying to compromise with it, not trying to work out deals. No, people like Kate and the mining company have to be stopped, and we have to have the courage to face them, no matter what the personal consequences may be. The Wheeler case gets exposed, whatever. This needs to be done. And that's when she found the courage to do so, which was great to see. And yeah, there's no clean heroes. No, Evangeline has her warts and her demons. Liz obviously does, you know, sleeping with married men all the time and everything. But she's finding the courage that needs to get done to bring this case to justice. So no clean heroes was another big angle that we've seen in this entire episode. And Liz was kind of the last one that needed to overcome her fears to become that true detective and hero that's needed to bring the mining company to justice. Um, Other things that stood out to me, uh, I would say Leia and Sherry. So Leia, Liz's daughter, you know, she goes to the protest, she has the face paint on and everything. That was a good example of what it means to be an ally. She really, you know, Sherry being her girlfriend, thought that was her ally and everything. But when it shit hits the fan and you have to actually put some skin in the game, you know, when Leia was there getting beat by the cops, you know, what did Sherry do? Didn't help, didn't yell, literally ran off. So it's one thing to put on a revolutionary costume, it's another thing to actually be able to be willing to do the things that an activist does. And I think that was also a wake up call for Leia because it's not fun being an activist. You know, we celebrate the civil rights movement, suffrage movements, all the movements that we've had throughout American history, worldwide history that have led to change. The lives of these people were very brutal, and there were some sad ends to a lot of them. A lot of them lost their jobs, lost family members and friends who were killed. Some people themselves were killed, jailed for years on end. Nelson Mandela is a good example of that. There is nothing fun about being a revolutionary. When you actually get down to trying to get power and change from, you know, from people in power, they're not just going to give it over to you. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be violent resistance. And so I think once that happened to Leia, she started to see her mother's viewpoint a little bit more as far as Liz's fear of her getting involved in that type of life. So I don't think that's changed, you know, Leia's perspective. She will get back into it or stay into it. But I think she understands more where her mother's fear is coming from. And that's why they had a more reasonable conversation. You know, when you listen to the conversation they had in the bathroom, you know, Leia said to Liz that I haven't given up on you yet. So I think they're meeting closer in the middle because she knows where her mother is coming from with that fear. Uh, Also in that scene was very important for the development of Evangeline as a Native woman. You know, I talked before, the key to solving this case for Evangeline is she needed to find her own identity as a Native woman because she's been stuck between both worlds. You know, in Black culture, there's a very famous and well-regarded scholar named W.E.B. Du Bois. He had a concept of what he called double consciousness, where essentially, as a Black person in America, particularly in the early 1900s, trying to reconcile your identity with a Black person, your culture as a Black person, and reconciling that with white America and having to try and balance the two if they can even be balanced. I think that applies to really any minorities that come over to this country. And essentially, it's the same thing going on with Evangeline because she's a trooper. She's with the establishment. She came there to restore order with the police at the protest, but she doesn't really fit in that world. And in her native world, what are people constantly asking her that come in contact with them, particularly older Native people? Okay, your name is Evangeline Navarro, yes. But what is your real name? What is your native name? And she can never give them an answer. And she said that, you know, she wishes her mother would have gave her what her native name is before she passed on. And, you know, and finding out what that name is, I think that's going to be the catalyst to not only Evangeline finding peace, but finding identity um, for herself in this world, in this tangible world, but also in the spiritual world as well, being able to make peace with what happened with Jules and what also happened with her mother. So I think she's getting closer to that. And I think that's going to be one of the big things that happens in the final episode. I think that's going to take us into the spiritual realm where she has a meeting with either Jules or maybe even her mother to finally get that name. And once she gets that name, that's going to empower her to do the things that she needs to do to close this case. But yeah, but you know what? On top of that, I'll also say I think Evangeline has made the decision in this episode of what side she's truly going to be on, because she kind of hasn't been in the middle between both about you know being a trooper and being a native woman. But I think when she saved Leia and started actually beating up the cop that she came there with, I think she made it clear that I am a native woman first, and everything that I'm going to be doing is to preserve that culture and preserve the people. Because remember, she also said to Liz that these aren't crazy activists. What they're doing is just, we're being poisoned by the water. Everything that they're doing needs to be done. So I think she's finally made the decision that I'm going to be on the side of my native people and my native land completely. And I think that's going to be the thing that allows her to discover her name in the final episode. Um, Let's see. I think that kind of covers everything. I think the last thing to go into will be predictions. This was a nice long episode, nearly an hour and a half. I think we need an hour and a half next week as well. I hope we do. But predictions as far as number one, who killed Annie K? Um, I am going to go with, before I said silver mining, like just anonymous goons. We know Kate is the one behind the cover up. But I actually think the scientists were the ones that all killed her together. And I think that's the reason why they were killed so brutally. I think what makes me think that is she stabbed over 30 times. Somebody had an axe to grind with her. I think if she had been found in that underground facility, the ice cave, if I think she had just been found there taking pictures, she wouldn't have been killed like that. I do think she would have been killed, but I think it would have been someone like Kate's call, where Kate would have said, all right, poison her, shoot her once in the head, nice and clean, and then dump her body in the frozen waters up there so it'll never be discovered. But the fact that she was killed in a frenzy like that, I think that she was down there not just observing everything and maybe taking pictures on her phone. I think whatever she found with the water poisoning and all that, I think it whipped her into a frenzy where she started destroying the work down there. I was looking again, I didn't see any fires or anything in the background, but I could see her kicking stuff over possibly and doing things like that. And if you think about who would be most upset by that, it would be the scientists. Because if I've been working on something for 10 plus years, 5 years, whatever it is, and I come in and I see you who are not supposed to be there and you're destroying everything, my first reaction is probably going to be to attack you. So then when you have, what was it, 6 scientists, all that fighting with Annie K, that's how weapons can come out. And I think they all started stabbing her. I think it was like a Julius Caesar type of thing. And that's how she was killed so brutally. Really, the only question was whether Clark was there when it happened and whether he participated. Was he off to the side, just horrified? And that's where all that guilt is coming from? Or is it an even heavier guilt because he was the one participating in the stabbing and in the killing of Annie K? All right. With that said, I got to touch on this one thing. This is one thing I do not want to see happen. If this happens, it will kill the entire season for me, and I will just be criticizing the entire episode, last episode, no matter what happens. This cannot happen. What am I talking about? This better not be some situation where, in other shows where it's two characters that like each other, but they're getting into a fight and they start tussling, and then somebody gets pushed, and then the person that gets pushed, they fall down and hit their head, and then they die. It better be not nothing fluky like that, where Annie K got killed by Clark that way, and then they stabbed her a bunch of times to cover it up and make it look like some frenzied killing and then move their body. Please do not do that. No, it would kind of kill everything we've built towards. The whole thing is that Annie K was discarded and brutally killed for the activism that she was doing. So it has to be a brutal death. It can't be some accidental death like that, star-crossed lovers between Clark and Annie K pushed her too hard and I didn't mean to kill her. No, don't do no mess like that. That's too Hollywood, too soap opera-ish. No, we need to stick with this conspiracy. They did what they did deliberately and they paid for it. So if that happens, I'll be very upset, just so you know. So please do not do that. Keep my fingers crossed that that doesn't happen. Now, with that said, if I'm believing that the scientists themselves were the ones that killed Annie K, who were the ones that got revenge for her? So my first person that I think would be Annie K's brother. We only saw him in like the first couple episodes, but he seems like he can handle himself. He seems very brooding. Obviously, you would think that of somebody who lost her sister like that, but he's somebody I feel would be ready for revenge if he found out the truth. And I think he could have found out the truth. You know, his sister is dating someone. I know they were keeping it a secret, but if he finds out some type of way or found out some type of way, I can see him going on a murderous warpath, going up there. We know the lights were cut off by somebody. I can see him doing that, and then rushing them out into the snowstorm to die horrible deaths. Maybe strip them of their clothes and just sat there and watched them freeze to death. Um, the only thing that throws me off a little bit about that is it's hard for me to see him as one person who's probably not familiar with that area or that facility, the Salal facility, to be able to go in there and round up everybody in the dark. So I think it has to be a group. I can see him leading the group. I definitely think he was there, but I don't think he would be by himself. So if he's not by himself, who else will be willing to go with him that has an equal axe to grind, that really feels Annie K's loss and is really upset by losing her? The only other group I can think of would be the women or also their partners who lost their children. Because Annie K, without that home care facility, nursing facility, we have all these children that have died in stillbirth over the last couple of years with Annie K being gone. So I can see all those Native women and potentially their partners, their boyfriends, their husbands being willing to join the fight to avenge Annie K. So now visualize this. We have 10, 15, 20 people storm the facility. Let's say they're wearing war paint because they're there for war, right? So if they have to, just like we saw the activists with the black paint on their face, maybe they showed up in native garments or war paint because they were there to do a job. That can be what probably frightened the scientists so much. Remember when they were out there in the snow, they died. They had like these looks of fright on their face. So if they're there naked, being stripped, being taken out there to die, or if they ran away and just died on their own, they're running away from native people with the guns and the face paint. Might be where the fright in their faces came from. But those are my top two people. And I think they did it together. I think it was Ryan, who was Annie K's brother, and I think he got together with a group of the native women and potentially their male partners who lost their children in childbirth. They all got together and they were the ones that stormed the facility and drove out the scientists. So that would take care of the scientists that we saw as the corpsicle. What about Clark, right? Because Clark got away. So this ties into where we found Annie K in her phone. She's looking up at the dinosaur fossil that's stuck in the ice and everything. So what this tells me, because Night Country is underground ice caves, we know that for sure, right? We know Solal is doing research on behalf of the mining company and cooking the numbers. So if they're doing research, we know they're doing research underground. We know they killed Annie K underground. So what that tells me is that while the Salal facility is not right over top of the mine where Annie K was being killed, there has to be underground tunnels that connects everything to the Salal facility, which makes sense because they can't just be going back and forth to these different ice caves, because this is supposed to be something that is not known to the public. So the way to keep that hidden would be to do everything underground. So I think that there's underground tunnels that led to where Annie K was killed and that lead to the other Night Country ice caves all over the regions where they're doing their research at. So that to me is how Clark has been able to get around because it's probably, with the tunnels under there has to be food under there, right? That they have to keep everything stocked because they're doing research for years on end. I know they come up every now and then, but if they're doing, weeks at a time underground doing research, there has to be food down there. So that's how Clark has been able to disappear and be off the map because no one can find him anywhere. There was that one picture showing him out in this remote region, but it probably wasn't really remote because he knows how to get down there. He knows where the tunnels are and everything. And that's how he's able to stay hidden. And that's how he was able to disappear from the ship when they finally found him in episode 4 at the end, he was able to get away from them because he knows where all these tunnels are. So I think that's going to be a big thing of discovering exactly where the tunnels are. And I think that's where they're going to find Clark and either force him or maybe he'll deliberately give a confession because he's upset, with feeling all that guilt from Annie K being killed. So that's my another big prediction. We're going to find that these ice caves, these night country caves, are connected to the Salah facility directly through tunnels. I think that's what we're going to find out. The other thing I can't really get a prediction on, and this is, I think, where the supernatural element might come in, would be her tongue. Why was her tongue there? Is that like her marking that she was leaving? Because I think there's definitely a distinct supernatural thing going on. We can't discount that, even though some of this might be in people's heads, the fact that we had the Rose character, her ghost boyfriend led her to the corpsicle and everything. And I've talked about this in previous episodes, and it's being considered at the end of the world. I think this is one of those places where the fabric between the supernatural and the real world is kind of bent together. And that's why we're seeing things go on. You can look at maybe New Orleans as another place like that, where the fabric between the supernatural spiritual world and the regular world kind of converge too closely. So I think this Ennis is a place like that. So I don't think everything is completely rational, has a completely rational explanation. Um, but True Detective does always leave a hint of the supernatural, and I think that tongue thing may be it. Because I can't really come up with a rational explanation outside of what I talked about before with the Tuskegee experiments. We have seen history of our government doing experiments on minorities in the past. Tuskegee is a big one. If you haven't researched that, looked that up, Tuskegee experiments, where they were deliberately injecting Black men with syphilis in the early 1900s to track how their bodies responded to it. And this happened for decades and generations. So maybe they were doing something similar with Annie K. In particular, if you look at the story of Henrietta Lacks, her cancer cells were harvested from her without permission in the 1950s, and it's been used for decades to progress medical research with cells and all types of research, because those cells can, I think, duplicate themselves. That's what made her cells so valuable. So maybe after they killed Annie K, they discovered something with her cells that were so valuable that they needed to keep part of her body to keep harvesting that DNA. Maybe it's something along those lines, which would be terrible, but there is historical precedent for that happening in the real world, with Henrietta Lacks is kind of the biggest example. So that might explain the tongue, but I really hope we get a rational explanation for that, because even with that, even if they were doing experimentation with that, it would be like in the lab somewhere, right? It wouldn't just be under the table, just there. So that's something, and this is 3 years ago. Annie K's been dead for 3 years. So preserved tongue for 3 years. If you were preserving it and you were the scientist, you wouldn't just leave it under the table. So that kind of doesn't fit either. So I need an explanation for that in the finale. I hope we get one. That's one thing that I can't really put my finger on what's going on there. But I think that covers everything. A lot going on with True Detective. I'm enjoying. I think we've gotten the nice, exciting ride to get to this point. We just need to have them nail the finale, which I think they'll do. I think the big things we'll also get is and Evangeline discovering her real name and her real identity. I think that'll make her be at peace. I think also Liz has finally turned the page as far as knowing why her daughter needs to embrace her native history, and also knowing how valuable Pete is as a person, not just an employee. I think she's turned the curve there. It's just a matter of how high up the food chain they'll be able to solve everything. I do think the case will be cracked. I do think Annie K's killing killers will be brought to justice, but I think Kate will escape in the end. So that's kind of my prediction. So let me know what you guys think. I know this video's been going pretty long. I'm gonna cut it here. I don't want it to go too long. I know it's Super Bowl Sunday. I didn't watch. I know the episode came out early on the 9th. I was out in Vegas doing some boxing event, with Teofimo Lopez fight. So I didn't watch it. I actually waited until we got to Sunday to check it out. I was able to avoid a lot of the spoilers and everything. So let me know what you guys think. Next weekend will be a doozy. I'm hoping we get at least an hour and a half. I want to hear your thoughts. And of course, enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. Like and subscribe. And I will see you guys next week to cover part 6 of True Detective Night Country. Take care and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.